The clock on the wall showed 9:45 p.m. when Rosa Martinez pulled into the parking lot of Sterling Tech Corporation. The building stood tall against the night sky, its glass windows reflecting the streetlights below. Most of those windows were dark now. The executives, the managers, the office workers, they had all gone home hours ago to their families, their warm dinners, their comfortable lives. Rosa sat in her car for a moment, rubbing her tired eyes. She'd already worked 8 hours at the diner that morning, serving coffee and pancakes to the breakfast crowd, then lunch to the business people who never seemed to notice her face. Her feet ached. Her back ached. But she couldn't think about that now. This second job, this night cleaning position, was what kept the lights on in their tiny apartment. It was what put food in 7-year-old Lily's lunchbox each morning. She checked her phone one more time. 3 missed calls from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who usually watched Lily in the evenings. Rosa's heart sank as she listened to the voicemail. Mrs. Chen's daughter had gone into labor early. She'd had to leave town immediately. She was so sorry, but she couldn't watch Lily tonight. Rosa leaned her forehead against the steering wheel. What was she supposed to do? She couldn't afford to miss this shift. She'd already missed 2 days last month when Lily had the flu, and her supervisor had made it clear that reliability was important. 3 strikes and you're out, he'd said with a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. She looked in the rearview mirror at the back seat. Lily was already asleep, curled up with her worn stuffed rabbit and the blanket that used to belong to her father. Rosa's chest tightened at the thought of Daniel. 3 years gone now, but some days it felt like yesterday. The cancer had taken him so quickly, and the medical bills had taken everything else. Their house, their savings, their future. But she couldn't think about that now either. She had to keep moving forward. That's what Daniel would have wanted. That's what Lily needed. Rosa made a decision. She gently opened the back door and carefully lifted Lily into her arms. The little girl stirred but didn't wake, her head resting against Rosa's shoulder. Rosa grabbed the extra blanket and Lily's backpack, the one with her coloring books and crayons inside, and headed toward the building. The night security guard, Tom, looked up from his desk as she entered. He was an older man with kind eyes who'd always been friendly to Rosa. "Evening, Rosa," he said, then noticed the sleeping child in her arms. His expression softened. "Babysitter trouble?" Rosa nodded, feeling her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I'm sorry. It's just for tonight. She'll sleep in the break room. She won't be any trouble, I promise." Tom waved his hand dismissively. "Don't you worry about it. I've got 3 kids of my own. I know how it goes. You do what you need to do." Rosa felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Tom, really." She took the elevator to the 3rd floor where the break room was located. It was a small space with a few tables, a refrigerator, and a worn couch that had seen better days. Rosa laid out the blankets on the couch and carefully set Lily down, tucking the blanket around her small body. Lily mumbled something in her sleep and hugged her rabbit tighter. Rosa stood there for a moment watching her daughter sleep. Lily's face was peaceful, innocent, unaware of how hard life had become. That's how it should be, Rosa thought. Children shouldn't have to worry about adult problems. They shouldn't have to know that their mother worked 2 jobs just to afford their small apartment in the not-so-great part of town. They shouldn't have to understand words like eviction notice or past due. She checked her watch. 10:05 p.m. She was already behind schedule. Rosa grabbed her cleaning cart from the supply closet and got to work. The 3rd floor was mostly cubicles and conference rooms. She moved through them efficiently, emptying trash cans, wiping down desks, vacuuming the carpets. This was her routine, her meditation almost. While her hands worked, her mind could wander. She thought about Lily's upcoming parent-teacher conference. Her daughter was so bright, always reading books beyond her grade level, always asking questions about how things worked. The teacher had mentioned that Lily might qualify for the gifted program next year. Rosa smiled at that thought, even as worry crept in behind it. The gifted program meant field trips, special supplies, opportunities that cost money. Money she didn't have, but she'd figure it out somehow. She always did. By midnight, she'd finished the 3rd and 4th floors. Now came the executive level, the 5th floor. This was always saved for last because it required more attention to detail. The executives had bigger offices, nicer furniture, and higher expectations. Rosa pushed her cart out of the elevator and onto the plush carpet of the 5th floor. Everything up here was different. Leather chairs, artwork on the walls, the kind of quiet that came from expensive soundproofing. She moved through the vice president's offices first, then the CFO's suite. Finally, she reached the corner office at the end of the hall. The nameplate on the door read, James Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer. Rosa had cleaned this office 5 nights a week for 8 months now, but she'd never actually met the man who worked here. She came at night. He came during the day. Their worlds didn't intersect. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The office was enormous, easily 3 times the size of her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city lights below. A massive mahogany desk dominated the center of the room, its surface neat and organized. Behind it sat a leather chair that probably cost more than Rosa made in 6 months. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with business books and awards. On another wall hung framed photographs. The CEO with various important-looking people, shaking hands, receiving awards, giving speeches. But what caught Rosa's attention, as it always did, was the family photo on the desk. It showed a younger version of James Whitmore with a beautiful woman and 2 teenage children, all smiling on what looked like a ski vacation. They looked happy. They looked like a complete family. Rosa turned away and got to work. She dusted the bookshelves, emptied the trash, cleaned the windows. She was careful with everything, treating each item with respect even though she knew the CEO probably never noticed the work she did. To him, the office just magically stayed clean. People like her were invisible. She'd just finished vacuuming when she heard a small voice behind her. "Mommy?" Rosa spun around to find Lily standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Her dark hair was messy from sleep, and she still clutched her stuffed rabbit. "Sweetie, what are you doing up?" Rosa asked, quickly turning off the vacuum and going to her daughter. "I woke up and you weren't there," Lily said, her voice small and worried. "I got scared." Rosa's heart clenched. She knelt down and pulled Lily into a hug. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm right here. I was just working. You're safe." Lily looked past her mother into the grand office, her eyes growing wide. "Wow, is this where a king works?" Despite her exhaustion, Rosa smiled. "Not a king. The CEO. He's the boss of the whole company." Lily walked into the office slowly, taking in everything with the wonder only a 7-year-old could have. She ran her small hand along the edge of the desk, looked at the photographs, pressed her face against the window to see the city below. "It's so big," Lily whispered. "Our whole apartment could fit in here." Rosa didn't know what to say to that because it was true. She watched as Lily walked around the desk and climbed into the enormous leather chair. The little girl's feet didn't even touch the ground. "Lily, honey, you shouldn't," Rosa started but stopped. "What harm could it do?" It was late. The CEO wouldn't be here until morning, and Lily looked so small and curious sitting in that big chair, spinning it slightly from side to side. "What does a CEO do?" Lily asked. "He makes important decisions," Rosa explained. "He runs the whole company. All the people who work here, they all work for him. Even you, even me." Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she noticed a pen holder on the desk, full of expensive-looking pens. Next to it was a notepad with the company logo at the top. "Mommy, I'm bored," Lily said. "Can I draw?" Rosa hesitated. She should say no. She should take Lily back to the break room and finish her work. But Lily had already been through so much tonight, waking up confused and scared in a strange place. And Rosa still had 2 more offices to clean. "Okay," Rosa said, "but just 1 piece of paper and then we need to go back to the break room so you can sleep." "I still have work to do. I promise," Lily said, already reaching for a pen and paper. Rosa returned to her cleaning, keeping one eye on her daughter. Lily sat at the big desk, her little face serious with concentration as she drew. Rosa finished the windows, cleaned the attached private bathroom, and was organizing her cleaning supplies when she realized Lily wasn't drawing anymore. She was writing. "What are you working on, sweetie?" Rosa asked, walking over. Lily looked up, and there was something sad in her eyes that made Rosa's heart hurt. "I'm writing a letter." "A letter to who?" "To the CEO, to Mr. Lily squinted at the nameplate on the desk. "Mr. Whitmore." Rosa felt a flutter of concern. "Lily, I don't think—" "It's okay, Mommy, I just want to tell him something." "Is that bad?" Rosa looked at her daughter's earnest face and couldn't say no. What do you want to tell him? Lily looked down at her paper, her small hand gripping the pen. I want to tell him about you, about how hard you work, about how you're the best mommy in the whole world even though you're always tired. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. She sat down in one of the chairs across from the desk, suddenly unable to stand. Oh, sweetheart, you are, Mommy, Lily insisted. You work so hard. You never get to sleep. Sometimes I hear you crying at night when you think I'm asleep. I don't like it when you cry. Rosa's throat tightened. She thought she'd been so careful, so quiet. She didn't know that Lily had heard. I'm okay, baby, Rosa managed to say. Really? But Lily was already bent over her letter again, writing slowly and carefully in her best handwriting. Rosa watched as her daughter poured her young heart onto the page. After a few minutes, Lily finished. She read over what she'd written, her lips moving silently. Then she folded the paper and left it in the center of the desk where it couldn't be missed. There, Lily said with satisfaction. Maybe he'll read it and understand. Understand what? Rosa asked gently. That people like you need help. That mommies who work all night should have more help so they don't have to be so sad. Rosa couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She pulled Lily into her arms, holding her close, this beautiful, compassionate, too wise for her age little girl. Come on, Rosa whispered. Let's get you back to bed. She carried Lily back to the break room and tucked her in again. This time Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from her nighttime adventure. Rosa stood there for a long moment looking at her sleeping daughter, then returned to finish her work. It wasn't until she was packing up her supplies at 5:30 a.m. that she remembered the letter. Should she go back and get it? Should she throw it away before anyone saw it? But she was so tired and Lily would be disappointed, and really, what was the harm? The CEO probably wouldn't even read it. He'd probably just throw it away himself. Rosa clocked out, woke Lily gently, and drove home as the sun began to rise over the city. She had 3 hours to sleep before she had to get Lily ready for school. 3 hours before her life continued its exhausting cycle. She never imagined that everything was about to change because of a letter written in crayon by a 7-year-old girl who just wanted her mother to smile again, James. Whitmore's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., same as it did every weekday morning. He reached over and silenced it, then lay in the darkness for a moment, gathering himself for another day. His wife, Catherine, stirred beside him but didn't wake. She'd learned years ago that James kept brutal hours, and she'd stopped trying to have breakfast with him on weekday mornings. He showered, dressed in one of his perfectly tailored suits, and was out the door by 6:15. The drive to the office took 20 minutes at this hour, before the traffic started. James liked arriving early. It gave him time to think, to plan, to get ahead of the chaos that would inevitably fill his day once everyone else arrived. The parking garage was nearly empty. His spot marked with his name was right by the elevator. He nodded to Tom, the night security guard who was just finishing his shift, and took the elevator to the 5th floor. James walked through the quiet executive suite, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. He loved this time of day when the office was his alone. No meetings, no phone calls, no people needing decisions from him, just silence and possibility. He unlocked his office door and stepped inside, flipping on the lights. The morning sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting a soft glow through the floor-to-ceiling windows. James set his briefcase down and went to start his coffee maker, a fancy machine that Catherine had given him for Christmas. While the coffee brewed, he walked to his desk to check what his assistant had left for him yesterday. There was usually a stack of documents requiring his signature, a printed schedule for the day, and any urgent messages that couldn't wait. But this morning, something was different. In the center of his desk, impossible to miss, was a piece of paper covered in crayon. Not pen, not pencil. Crayon. The bright colors, purple, pink, blue, stood out starkly against his dark mahogany desk. James stopped, confused. He looked around his office as if someone might jump out and explain this strange sight. But he was alone. The office was exactly as he'd left it yesterday evening. Everything in its place. Except for this. He picked up the paper carefully as if it might disintegrate in his hands. At the top was a drawing of what appeared to be a stick figure woman with long dark hair, holding hands with a smaller stick figure. Both figures had big smiles drawn on their circular faces. Above them was a sun and some clouds, and below them was what looked like a building, probably meant to be this very building. Below the drawing, in careful childish handwriting, was a letter. James sat down slowly in his chair and began to read. "Dear Mr. CEO," it started. "My name is Lily. I am 7 years old. My mom cleans your office at night. Her name is Rosa, and she is the best mom in the whole world." James felt something tighten in his chest. He continued reading. "My mom works very hard. She works at a restaurant in the morning, and then she comes here at night to clean. Sometimes she brings me with her when there is no one to watch me. I hope that is okay. I promise I did not touch anything except this paper and pen." James glanced at his pen holder. He hadn't even noticed that one was missing. "I want you to know that my mom is very tired all the time. She works every day except Sunday. Sometimes I hear her crying at night when she thinks I am sleeping. It makes me sad. I wish she did not have to work so much. I wish she could sleep more and smile more." James had to stop reading for a moment. He looked up at the family photo on his desk, the one from the ski trip 2 years ago. His own children, Ryan and Sophie, now in college. They'd never known what it was like to worry about money. They'd never had to see their mother cry from exhaustion. They'd grown up with every advantage, every opportunity. He forced himself to keep reading. "My mom says you are very important. She says you run the whole company and everyone works for you. I was thinking that maybe you get tired too from being so important. Do you? If you do, I hope you have someone to take care of you like my mom takes care of me." The words hit James harder than he expected. Did he get tired? Yes, but when he was tired, he went home to his comfortable house. He had his wife to talk to. He had the option to take a vacation whenever he wanted. His exhaustion was nothing like what this child was describing. "I am writing this letter because I learned in school that important people can help make things better. My teacher says that people in charge have power to change things. I do not know if that is true, but I hope it is." James felt his throat tighten. The innocence of it, the hope. "Could you please help my mom? Not just my mom, but all the moms and dads who work at night cleaning. They work so hard and nobody sees them. Nobody says thank you. But without them, your office would be dirty and you could not do your important work. Right?" James set the letter down and stood up abruptly. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. The sun was higher now, and he could see the first rush of morning commuters filling the streets. Thousands of people heading to work. How many of them were working multiple jobs? How many were one emergency away from financial disaster? He'd built this company from nothing. 25 years ago, it had been just him and 2 partners in a garage, working on their first software project. They'd been hungry then, working around the clock, believing they could change the world with their ideas. And they had changed it, in a way. Sterling Tech now employed over 3,000 people. They'd made millions. They'd won awards. James had been featured in business magazines. He'd been invited to speak at conferences. But when was the last time he'd thought about the people who cleaned these offices? The security guards who kept the building safe at night? The maintenance workers who fixed things when they broke? They were invisible to him. They'd always been invisible. James returned to his desk and picked up the letter again, reading the final paragraph. "I hope I am not being rude by writing this. My mom does not know I left this letter. She would probably be mad if she knew. Please do not be mad at her. She is a good worker and she needs this job. I just thought maybe if you knew about her, about all the people like her, maybe you could help. Thank you for reading my letter. I like your office. It is very big and pretty. Our apartment could fit inside it. Love, Lily. P.S. I hope you have a nice day." James sat there for a long moment, the letter in his hands, feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. Our apartment could fit inside it. The casual way she'd written that without anger or resentment, just as a simple observation, a child's truth. He looked around his office with fresh eyes. The expensive furniture, the artwork, the view. He'd earned this, hadn't he? He'd worked hard. He'd taken risks. He'd built something from nothing. But what about Rosa? Wasn't she working hard too? Wasn't she taking risks every time she brought her daughter to work because she had no other choice? Wasn't she building something, trying to give her child a better life? James pressed the intercom button on his phone. His assistant, Patricia, wouldn't be in for another hour, but he called her cell phone instead. "Patricia, I'm sorry to call so early," he said when she answered, sounding groggy with sleep. "Mr. Whitmore, is everything all right? I need you to get me the employee file for someone in our cleaning crew. Her name is Rosa Martinez. Can you have that ready when you get in?" There was a pause on the other end. The cleaning crew? Those employees are contracted through an outside company, Spotless Solutions. We might not have detailed files on them. Then get me the contact information for Spotless Solutions. I want to know everything about Rosa Martinez. How long she's worked here, what her wages are, everything. Of course. May I ask what this is about? James looked down at the letter again. Just get me that information, please. It's important. After he hung up, James sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. His coffee was ready, but he'd forgotten all about it. His mind was racing. He thought about his own children, Ryan and Sophie. They'd both gone to private schools. They'd taken music lessons and played sports. They'd gone on school trips to Europe. They were now at prestigious universities, studying whatever interested them without worrying about the cost. And somewhere in this city, a 7-year-old girl named Lily was watching her mother work herself to exhaustion. She was hearing her mother cry at night. She was being brought to offices in the middle of the night because there was no one else to watch her. How many other children were living like that? How many other Rosas were working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive? And how had he, James Whitmore, champion of innovation and efficiency, never stopped to think about this before? He picked up his phone again and called down to security. "Tom, this is James Whitmore. Do you have a moment?" "Of course, Mr. Whitmore. What can I do for you?" "The woman who cleans my office at night, Rosa Martinez." "Do you know her?" "Sure, I know Rosa. Good woman. Very reliable. She's been with the cleaning crew for about 8 or 9 months now." "Has she ever brought a child with her to work?" There was a slight hesitation. "Once or twice when she's had childcare issues." "Is there a problem?" "Because I can assure you the child never causes any trouble. Rosa keeps her daughter in the break room and, Tom, I'm not calling to complain. I just need to understand the situation. This happens regularly, not regularly, maybe once a month, maybe less. Rosa is always apologetic about it. She's a good employee, Mr. Whitmore. One of the best we have on the night crew." "Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your honesty." James ended the call and opened his laptop. He pulled up the company's HR policies and began reading through them. What did Sterling Tech offer its employees? Health insurance, yes. Retirement matching, yes. Paid time off, yes. But all of that was only for direct employees, not contractors. The cleaning crew, the security guards, the cafeteria workers, they were all contracted through outside companies. It was more efficient that way, more cost-effective. It meant Sterling Tech didn't have to worry about their benefits or their problems. They were someone else's responsibility. But they were here every day, weren't they? They were the ones who made it possible for everyone else to work in a clean, safe, functioning building. They were part of the Sterling Tech ecosystem, even if they weren't technically Sterling Tech employees. Patricia arrived at 7:30, earlier than usual. She knocked on James's door and entered carrying a thin folder. "I got what I could on short notice," she said, setting the folder on his desk. "Rosa Martinez has been with Spotless Solutions for 3 years. She was assigned to our building 8 months ago. According to their records, she works 40 hours a week for them, 5 nights a week from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Her hourly wage is $14. James did the quick math in his head. $14 an hour, 40 hours a week. That was around $560 a week before taxes, maybe $2,000 a month after taxes, in a city where the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was $1,500. And the letter had mentioned she worked another job too. "Get me the CEO of Spotless Solutions on the phone," James said. "Right now? Right now." 20 minutes later, James was on a call with Gary Chen, the owner of Spotless Solutions. "Mr. Whitmore, this is unexpected," Gary said, his voice professionally cheerful. "What can I do for you?" "I want to talk about one of your employees, Rosa Martinez." The cheerfulness dimmed slightly. "Has there been a problem with her work?" "Because I can assure you, no problem. Her work is excellent. That's actually why I'm calling. I want to understand her situation better. She's working for you 40 hours a week, correct?" "That's correct." "And she's paid $14 an hour?" "That's the standard rate for our night cleaning crew." "It's above minimum wage." "Not by much," James said quietly. "Tell me, Gary, do your employees get health insurance?" "We offer a basic plan that they can purchase at a reduced rate." "They have to pay for it themselves?" "Well, yes. We subsidize part of the cost, but what about sick days? Paid time off? After 1 year of employment, they accrue 5 days of paid time off annually." James leaned back in his chair, feeling his anger rise. 5 days a year. For someone working 40 hours a week. And if they get sick before that year is up, they can take unpaid leave, which meant people like Rosa couldn't afford to get sick. They couldn't afford to have their children get sick. They had to come to work no matter what, because missing a day meant not being able to pay rent or buy groceries. Gary, I'm going to be direct with you. The contract between Spotless Solutions and Sterling Tech is up for renewal in 3 months, correct? Yes, that's correct. Gary's voice had become cautious. I'm going to propose some changes. I want the wages for your employees working in our building increased to at least $20 an hour. I want you to provide them with full health insurance at no cost to them. I want to see better sick leave policies, and I want you to provide some kind of childcare support for single parents. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Whitmore, those changes would significantly increase our costs. We'd have to renegotiate the entire contract, probably at a higher rate. I'm prepared to pay a higher rate, but those are my conditions for renewal. Take it or leave it. I'll need to run the numbers and get back to you. You have 1 week, James said and ended the call. He sat there for a moment, his heart pounding. He just made a significant decision without consulting his CFO or his board. They'd probably push back. They'd question whether it was necessary. They'd talk about cost-benefit analyses and market rates and shareholder value, but James didn't care. He picked up Lily's letter again and read it one more time. The simple words of a 7-year-old child who just wanted her mother to smile more. Who believed that people in power could make things better? Maybe she was right. Maybe he could make things better. Maybe it was time to remember why he'd started this company in the first place. It wasn't just to make money or win awards. It was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to make a difference. James carefully folded the letter and slipped it into his briefcase. He wasn't going to throw it away. He was going to keep it. He was going to remind himself every single day that behind every employee number, every contract, every line item in the budget, there were real people. People with children. People with struggles. People who deserved dignity and respect. He had no idea if Rosa would ever know that her daughter's letter had changed everything. He had no idea if this was the right way to handle the situation. But he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't go back to not knowing. He couldn't unsee what Lily had shown him. And if that meant making some people uncomfortable, if that meant challenging the way things had always been done, then so be it. The morning sun was streaming through his windows now, bright and warm. James looked out at the city below, seeing it differently than he had just an hour ago. Somewhere out there, Rosa was probably sleeping after her long night shift, trying to get a few hours of rest before she had to get Lily ready for school. Tomorrow night, he decided, he'd be here waiting. He needed to meet this woman. He needed to hear her story. And he needed to tell her that her daughter might just have changed not only her life, but the lives of everyone like her. Because sometimes, James thought, the most important letters don't come from lawyers or board members or business partners. Sometimes they come from a 7-year-old girl with a crayon and a hope that the world could be a little bit better. James couldn't concentrate on work for the rest of that day. He sat through 3 meetings without really hearing what anyone said. His mind kept drifting back to that letter, to those crayon drawings, to the words written by a child who believed he had the power to help. By 5 o'clock, when most of his employees were packing up to go home, James made a decision. He told Patricia to cancel his dinner plans with Catherine. He'd make up an excuse later. Tonight he was staying at the office. Is there something urgent you need to work on? Patricia asked, concern in her voice. You could say that, James replied. Something that should have been urgent a long time ago. Patricia didn't press him for details. She'd worked for James for 12 years and knew when he needed space to think. The hours passed slowly. James ordered food from a nearby restaurant but barely touched it. He tried to do some paperwork, but the words blurred on the page. Finally, around 9:30, he gave up pretending to work and just sat by his window, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness settled over everything. At 10:15, he heard the elevator ding down the hall. His heart started beating faster. He stood up and walked to his door, leaving it slightly open so he could hear the sound of a cleaning cart wheels on carpet. Quiet movements. The soft hum of a vacuum cleaner starting up in one of the nearby offices. She was here. James waited, giving Rosa time to work through the other offices first. He didn't want to startle her. He rehearsed what he'd say in his mind, but every version sounded wrong. Too formal, too casual, too much like a boss talking to an employee, which technically she wasn't even his employee. Around 11 o'clock, he heard the cart stop outside his office. There was a pause, then the sound of a key in the lock. The door opened slowly. Rosa stepped inside, pulling her cart behind her. She was smaller than he'd imagined, maybe 5'3", with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore the navy blue uniform of Spotless Solutions and comfortable sneakers that had seen better days. Her face looked tired, but there was something determined about the set of her jaw. She didn't notice him at first. She was looking down, pulling trash bags from her cart, and when she looked up and saw him standing there by the window, she let out a small gasp. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, her hand going to her chest. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I can come back later." "No, please," James said, holding up his hand. "Don't go. I was waiting for you, actually." Rosa's eyes widened. "Waiting for me? Did I do something wrong?" "Not at all. Your work is excellent. Please sit down." He gestured to one of the chairs in front of his desk. Rosa looked confused and a little frightened, but she slowly sat down on the edge of the chair, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. She looked ready to run at any moment. James sat down across from her, not behind his desk. He didn't want this to feel like an interrogation or a formal meeting. He pulled Lily's letter from his briefcase and set it on the coffee table between them. Rosa's face went pale when she saw it. "Oh no," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. My daughter, she didn't mean any harm. She was just—" "Rosa," James said gently, "you're not in trouble. Neither is Lily. I asked you here because I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Rosa looked completely bewildered now. "Your daughter wrote me a letter. A very honest, very brave letter, and it made me realize something I should have seen a long time ago." He picked up the letter and held it carefully. "She told me about you, about how hard you work, about how tired you are." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She shouldn't have done that. I would never ask for special treatment. I just need this job. Please, Mr. Whitmore, I need this job." "I know you do," James said quietly, "and you're going to keep it. But I want to understand your situation better. Will you tell me your story? Not as your boss or as the CEO of this company, but just as one person to another?" Rosa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She was quiet for a long moment, and James could see her struggling with whether to trust him. Finally, she took a deep breath and began to speak. "My husband Daniel died 3 years ago," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Cancer. We found out too late and it moved fast. By the time they diagnosed him, there wasn't much they could do. He fought hard, though. He fought for 8 months." James listened without interrupting. "We had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. The experimental treatments, the medications that might have helped, they weren't covered. We spent everything we had trying to save him. We took out loans. We borrowed from family. We sold our house." Rosa's voice cracked slightly. "And he died anyway." "I'm so sorry," James said, and he meant it. "After he died, I had about $50,000 in medical debt. The collection agencies started calling immediately. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, making $12 an hour. I did the math. Even if I never spent a penny on anything else, never paid rent or bought food, it would take me years to pay off that debt. And I had Lily to take care of." Rosa looked down at her hands. "I lost our house. We moved to a small apartment in a neighborhood that isn't great, but it's what I can afford. I kept the receptionist job, but I needed more money. So I found this cleaning job. The hours are terrible, but the night shift pays a little more than day shifts, and it meant I could be home when Lily wakes up, get her ready for school, spend a little time with her before I go to my day job." "How much sleep do you get?" James asked. Rosa laughed, but there was no humor in it. 3, maybe 4 hours most days. I sleep from about 7 in the morning until 10:30. Then I get up, get ready, and go to the dental office. I work there from noon to 6. Then I come home, have dinner with Lily, help her with homework, put her to bed, and come here by 10. I work until 6 in the morning, drive home, and start all over again." James felt sick hearing it laid out like that. 7 days a week? 6, I don't work here on Sundays. That's my day with Lily. We go to the park if the weather is nice, or we stay home and read books. She loves to read. Rosa's face softened when she talked about her daughter. "She's so smart, Mr. Whitmore. She's reading at a 5th grade level even though she's only in 2nd grade. Her teacher says she has real potential. I can tell from her letter, James said. She's very articulate, very compassionate. She's too compassionate sometimes, Rosa said, wiping her eyes again. She worries about me. A 7-year-old shouldn't have to worry about her mother like that. She should be thinking about toys and cartoons and playing with friends. Instead, she's writing letters to CEOs about how tired I am. She wrote that letter because she loves you, James said, and because she's right. People like you shouldn't have to work themselves to exhaustion just to survive. Rosa looked at him with something like suspicion. With all due respect, Mr. Whitmore, that's easy to say when you're sitting in an office like this. The world doesn't work that way for people like me. You're right, James said, and his admission seemed to surprise her. It doesn't, but maybe it should. Maybe it could. What are you saying? James leaned forward. I'm saying that your daughter's letter changed something for me. It made me see that I've been so focused on profits and growth and success that I forgot to think about the actual people who make this company run. People like you. I don't work for Sterling Tech, Rosa pointed out. I work for Spotless Solutions. A technicality, James said. You work in this building every night. You make it possible for my employees to come in and do their jobs in a clean, comfortable environment. You're part of this ecosystem whether the paperwork says so or not. Rosa didn't say anything, just watched him with those dark, tired eyes. I called Gary Chen today, James continued, the owner of Spotless Solutions. I told him that if he wants to renew his contract with us, things need to change. Higher wages, real health insurance, not some bare-bones plan you have to pay for yourself. Better sick leave policies, support for single parents who need childcare. Rosa's eyes widened. You did that? Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Because your daughter asked me to help and she was right to ask. Because I have the power to make a difference and I haven't been using it. Rosa stood up abruptly and for a moment James thought she was going to run, but she just turned away, her shoulders shaking. When she spoke, her voice was thick with tears. You don't understand what this means, she said. I've been barely holding on. I'm 2 months behind on my rent. I got a notice last week saying if I don't catch up by the end of the month, we'll be evicted. I've been trying to figure out where Lily and I could go. My family is back in Texas and I don't have money for the move. I thought maybe we'd have to live in my car for a while just until I could save up enough for a new place. James felt like he'd been punched. Rosa, I had no idea things were that bad. She turned back to face him, tears streaming down her face now. How could you? Nobody sees people like me. We're invisible. We come at night when everyone is gone. We clean up your messes and empty your trash cans and make everything perfect for the morning. And nobody even knows our names. I know your name now, James said quietly, and I want to help. Not just with the contract changes, but with your immediate situation. I can— No, Rosa said firmly, cutting him off. I don't want charity. I appreciate what you're doing with the contract, I really do. But I don't want handouts. I want to earn my way. I want to provide for my daughter with my own work. James understood the pride in her voice, recognized it as the same pride that had driven him when he was building his company from nothing. I respect that. But let me ask you something. If the situation were reversed, if I needed help and you had the ability to give it, wouldn't you? Rosa hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then let me help, not as charity, but as an investment. Lily wrote in her letter that she hopes I have someone to take care of me. Well, I do. I have a wife and children who love me. I have resources and security and a support system. You're trying to do everything alone, and that's not sustainable. Nobody can do everything alone. Rosa sank back down into the chair. What kind of help are you talking about? First, your immediate crisis, your rent. Let me cover what you're behind so you don't lose your apartment. Before you argue, he held up his hand as she started to protest. Consider it a loan if that makes you more comfortable. Pay me back when you're in a better position. That's thousands of dollars. I know. Why would you do that for someone you just met? James picked up Lily's letter again. Because your daughter believed I could help. Because she had faith that people in power can make things better. I don't want to prove her wrong. I don't want her to grow up cynical and believing that nobody cares. Rosa was crying again, but quietly now. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let me help. And then let's talk about some other changes. The contract improvements with Spotless Solutions will help, but it's going to take a few weeks to implement. In the meantime, I want to create a new position here at Sterling Tech. We need someone to oversee our facilities management, to be a liaison between our contracted workers and the company. Someone who understands their needs and challenges firsthand. Who would do that? You would, if you want the job. It would be a day position, Monday through Friday. Better pay than what you're making now at both your jobs combined. Full benefits. And it would mean you could quit the cleaning job and the dental office job. You could have normal hours. You could sleep at night. You could be there when Lily gets home from school. Rosa stared at him like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. You're offering me a job? A real job? A real job. You'd be perfect for it. You know this building inside and out. You know what needs to be done and how to do it efficiently. And you understand what the contractors are dealing with because you've been one of them. That perspective is invaluable. But I don't have a college degree. I only finished high school. Some of the smartest, hardest working people I know don't have college degrees. What you have is experience and dedication and integrity. That's worth more than any diploma. Rosa put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs. James sat quietly, letting her process everything. After a few minutes, she looked up at him, her face wet with tears but her eyes clear. Why are you really doing this? She asked. Is it guilt? Do you feel bad because you saw a letter from a kid? James thought about that question seriously. Maybe guilt is part of it. But mostly it's because your daughter reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I started this company because I wanted to build something meaningful. I wanted to prove that you could be successful and ethical at the same time. Somewhere along the way I lost sight of that. I got caught up in the numbers and the growth and the competition. I forgot about the people. He stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city. My kids are in college now. They're studying business and economics, learning how to run companies and manage people. And I wonder what I've taught them. Have I taught them that success means accumulating wealth and power? Or have I taught them that success means using wealth and power to make things better? He turned back to Rosa. Your daughter is 7 years old and she already understands something that took me 52 years to relearn. She understands that we're all connected, that we all deserve dignity and respect, and that people with resources have a responsibility to help those without them. I want to be the kind of person she thinks I am, the kind of person who actually does something when he has the power to help. Rosa stood up slowly. She walked over to James and held out her hand. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for seeing me, for hearing Lily, for caring enough to do something about it. James shook her hand, and in that moment he felt something shift inside him. This was what success should feel like. Not closing a big deal or seeing stock prices rise, but making a real difference in someone's life. Can I ask you something? Rosa said. Can I bring Lily by sometime to meet you? She should know that her letter mattered, that her voice was heard. I'd like that very much, James said. In fact, I insist on it. I want to thank her personally for reminding me what's really important. Rosa smiled then, a real smile that lit up her whole face and made her look years younger. She's going to be so excited. She's been worried that you didn't even read the letter. I've read it 5 times today, James admitted, and I'm going to keep it. It's going to sit right here on my desk where I can see it every day. A reminder that sometimes the most important business decisions have nothing to do with business at all. They talked for a while longer, working out the details of the job offer and the loan for her rent. By the time Rosa left to finish her cleaning route, it was nearly 1 a.m. But James didn't feel tired. He felt energized in a way he hadn't felt in years. He looked down at Lily's letter one more time, at the crayon drawing of the woman and child holding hands. Such a simple drawing, such a simple hope, that the world could be a little bit better, that someone with power might actually use it to help. Well, he thought, sometimes simple is exactly what we need. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us of the things that really matter. James folded the letter carefully and placed it in a frame he'd taken from one of his many awards. That could go in storage. This letter deserved the place of honor on his desk. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd start making calls. There were other companies he could influence, other ways he could help. This wasn't going to be a one-time thing. This was going to be a change in how he did business, how he thought about success, how he used his position. Because a 7-year-old girl named Lily believed he could make things better, and he wasn't going to let her down. The next morning, James called an emergency meeting with his executive team. His CFO, Michael Torres, his COO, Jennifer Blake, and his VP of Human Resources, David Kim, all sat around the conference table looking confused about why they'd been summoned so urgently. Thank you all for coming on short notice, James began. He stood at the head of the table, And there was something different about him that his team noticed immediately. An energy. A purpose that seemed almost urgent. Is everything all right? Jennifer asked. Your assistant said this was important but wouldn't tell us what it was about. James pulled out Lily's letter and placed it in the center of the table. I want you all to read this. They passed the letter around, each person reading it carefully. James watched their faces change as they read, confusion at first, then understanding. Then something that looked like discomfort. This is from a child, Michael said, stating the obvious. The daughter of one of our cleaning staff, James confirmed. Her mother, Rosa Martinez, works for Spotless Solutions. She cleans this building every night while we're all home with our families. I don't understand, David said carefully. Why are we looking at this? Because this letter made me realize something we've all been overlooking. We talk about Sterling Tech's values. We talk about innovation and excellence and being a leader in our industry. But we've completely ignored the people who make it possible for us to work in a clean, safe, comfortable environment every day. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. James, these workers are contracted through outside companies. They're not our responsibility, aren't they? James challenged. They work in our building. They serve our company. They make our work possible. How are they not our responsibility? Michael jumped in. From a legal and financial standpoint, there's a clear distinction between direct employees and contracted workers. That's why we use contractors in the first place. It's more cost-effective and keeps our liability limited. I know why we do it, James said. I'm the one who approved these contracts, but I'm questioning whether we should continue doing it the same way. The room went quiet. David spoke up cautiously. What exactly are you proposing? James sat down and folded his hands on the table. I've already told Gary Chen at Spotless Solutions that we want changes to the contract. Increased wages for their workers, full health insurance coverage, better sick leave policies, and childcare support for single parents. You've already told him? Michael's voice rose slightly. James, those changes would significantly increase our facility's costs. By how much? I don't know yet. And honestly, I don't care. You don't care. Michael looked stunned. James, we have shareholders. We have a board. We have quarterly targets to meet. I can't just what? Make decisions that align with our stated values. Make choices that treat people with basic human dignity. James's voice was calm but firm. Rosa Martinez works 2 jobs. She sleeps 3 hours a night. She's 2 months behind on rent and was about to be evicted. And she's one of the hardest working people in this building. That's unacceptable, Jennifer spoke up. I understand the emotion behind this, James, I really do. But we have to think practically. If we start taking on financial responsibility for contracted workers, where does it stop? Do we do this for the cafeteria staff too? The parking attendants? The delivery drivers? Maybe we should, James said, and the looks on their faces told him how radical that sounded. That's not how business works, Michael said flatly. Every company uses contractors for these positions. It's industry standard. Then maybe the industry standard is wrong. The silence that followed was heavy. James could see his team exchanging glances, probably wondering if he'd lost his mind. Look, James continued, I'm not saying we need to have all the answers today, but I am saying we need to start asking different questions. We've been asking, how do we maximize profit? And how do we reduce costs? I'm saying we need to also ask, how do we treat people fairly? And what kind of company do we want to be?